The software was ADS 3.0.1, the very first version of ADS 8 months later. With the final version, what kind of results do you think we'll get? Better or worse? Drop your guesses in the comments. Finally, a quick look at the car and software. This is the Voyah 3 Plus with a starting pre-sale price of about $31,600. It's equipped with Huawei's Qian ADS and Harmony OS cockpit and can be upgraded to ADS 4 and Harmony OS for later on. Our test car is running ADS version 3.3.2 and its lane change style is set to Agile. The first test point in Wuhan is all about choosing the right lane for a U-turn, because of this concrete pillar in the middle of the road. Picking the wrong lane leads to different outcomes. Most cars that failed here before tried to make the U-turn before the pillar, which often caused conflicts with pedestrians waiting at the crosswalk. But look at the 3 Plus. It plans a route around so the pillar. Passes through test point 1 smoothly. At the next test point, ADS plans to take the second lane for the left turn. It then smoothly moves into the far right lane. That's the most efficient path. The flashing red light for the right turn didn't affect ADS. It accelerates through after crossing the crosswalk. Just as we passed test point 2, the people of Wuhan decided to raise the difficulty. This pedestrian is crossing the road diagonally. ADS started slowing down way in advance. The woman sees us and hesitates, then just starts walking along the solid line. The crosswalk is right there. But I guess she didn't want to walk those extra few steps. Right then, I knew this was going to be a wild ride. Faced with an e-bike speeding down the car lane, ADS chooses to change lanes to avoid it. If it were me, I wouldn't dare drive in the right lane either. Too many e-bikes here. Moving to the left was the right call. Not sure if this guy knows he just ran a red light. ADS slows down early and stops before the crosswalk. This is a classic ghost peak scenario. To my left, the driver of that minivan is experienced. He braked. If he hadn't, the outcome could have been disastrous. Moving on, look at the guardrail in the middle of the road. That old, and he's climbing over the railing while carrying stuff. ADS plans a path to the right, going around him. I just can't understand crossing the road like this. He's really risking it. The reason Wuhan is so tough isn't just the static road challenges like illegal parking, it's the constant negotiation with pedestrians and e-bikes. On the streets of Wuhan, not waiting for red lights and ignoring traffic rules is common. If you try to drive politely and yield to everyone, you might not get anywhere. So Wuhan drivers have learned to play a game of chicken with pedestrians, which creates a vicious cycle. After the right turn at test point 3, we enter the rightmost merge lane. Due to continuous traffic, the 3 Plus couldn't find a good opportunity to merge. ADS 3.3.2 chose the solid line was coming up, so the window to merge was tiny. I was really afraid it would cross the solid line. The system was smart and chose to creep forward and wait. After the Toyota passed, it merged in smoothly. That was handled really well. The planning and execution were just like a human driver. The next one, test point 4, is a new one. The challenge is that illegally parked cars block both sides of the lane, leaving only a narrow path in the middle. If the system misjudges a stationary car, it'll get stuck. Clearly, this scenario was no match for ADS. The 3 Plus planned a path right down the middle and passed through smoothly. And there's road work here too, construction on the right. So ADS goes around to the left. At the intersection, it even slipped into the empty right lane. That lane choice was very efficient, but it did cross the line. Green light, and the 3 Plus lost sight of the light here. It lost the light. Lost the light. Yep, lost it. I'll give it a little gas. I tapped the pedal. This was our first co-driving intervention of the day. It probably lost the light because this green light is broken. What comes next is the most intense moment of this Wuhan test. How about that? Scary, right? Let's rewind and see what happened. I need to turn right up ahead. The straight ahead light is green. Look at the two e-bikes on the left. They've already moved to the middle of the crosswalk, waiting for a chance to cross. Just as I was turning into the dedicated right turn lane, the first e-bike zipped past the front of the car. Let's pause the frame. At this point, there's no more space in front. Suddenly, the second e-bike darts out. The steering wheel whips to the right, and at the same time, AEB kicks in. Look at the SR display. The pilot didn't disengage. It started moving again right after braking. I posted on social media before that a top-tier driver assist system should immediately resume walking about. This is exactly the kind of scenario I was talking about. Disengage at all after an AEB user commented that the top system should have predictive abilities. I think they're right. So, does ADS have predictive abilities? Let's look back at the SR display. After the first e-bike passed, the second one was tagged by the system the moment it appeared. And during the turn, the guy was completely in my left side blind spot. If the system didn't have that foresight and only relied on AEB, a collision was still possible. So that little swerve was brilliant. If you weren't in Wuhan, who would imagine e-bikes would fight so hard with cars just to save a second? And the fact that ADS 3.3.2 didn't disengage after but the instead AEB immediately continued that level of seamless risk management really surprised me. Next, we enter Wuhan's landmark test point, the mixed traffic chaos of Shuesong Road Food Street. It's busy today, but for ADS 3.3.2, it's a walk in the park.